Hey everybody, it's Jordan here. I'm going to give you all an overview of the tunes, lessons, and exercises for each instrument that we've added for the month of March. I'll start off with Groundspeed. This is a classic Scruggs instrumental, and I was looking at the tabs that we had currently, and we've got some good ones. You know, we've got an Earl Scruggs transcription and a cool melodic, cool backup version. But they're pretty tough, they're pretty intense. You know, you can use that difficulty slider to make it easier. But I was working with one of my private students and they were kind of struggling with the Scruggs version. So I was thinking, you know, what would be a way to kind of distill this tune and make it more playable and also teach some like common banjo concepts along the way. So I developed a series of etudes. These are just studies, right? So we're going to use Groundspeed as a vehicle to study the forward roll. There's another one that you're going to be studying the forward and backward roll, just using, you know, one or two rolls for the whole time through. And then the third one is a mixed roll, so it's going to use several different roll types throughout. It gets a little bit closer to what the Earl Scruggs version is, but it's still a lot more playable. We don't have a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs and that stuff. So even these with the difficulty slider will be like super easy. So these are all really achievable but sound good and are educational as well. Okay, so there's Groundspeed. You can still hear the tune in there. We're still using these descending two-note chords, these little double stops. And you know, we're playing the rolls one at a time, or the notes one at a time. But as you can see, I'm keeping these two-note chords, these shapes, with my fret hand. I'm putting them both down pretty much at the same time, so that'll help you play through this. And the rest of it, you can hear I'm using the same roll pattern the whole time. Right? It's an etude where we're studying the forward roll, and it's all about achievability and playing this thing in a way that's going to help you really get a good handle on some fundamental banjo roll types. The backup version of this one, again, I made another simple one that's really achievable. Is going to be great for beginners as well, where you're just going to use some really basic rolls, some note pinches, and some pentatonic walks to create some really simple and solid backup for Groundspeed. And all of these new simple versions of Groundspeed have banjo playing elements like the rolls or the pentatonic walks that are used, you know, in the authentic version, in the way that Earl Scruggs would play this. So these will really help lay some groundwork with your fretting hand and with your pick hands that will really serve you well, you know, after you get these down, once you try to tackle tougher versions and the more authentic versions of this tune. All right, so we already had like a sort of complex version of some rolling backup on Tunefox, and then I added this new simple backup version, just the note pinch, pentatonic walks, and that stuff. But we didn't have any vamping, so I wanted to add that. And I didn't want to just add, you know, some standard kind of boom chuck simple vamping. So there's a cool concept in this one that we're going to use. And I don't hear it done very often, but I think it can create a really cool effect. So it's an interesting sound that you can just learn to make on your own, but also I think it's pretty cool, it jams. So what you're going to do is, you know, do your standard kind kind of boom chuck sound with a vamp, but then instead of like alternating up to this first inversion or just hanging out in that root shape, we're going to go to an open D note and then leave the rest of the chord shape intact, and then do a pinch on that, and we get this really cool sound that's it's like what a bass player does, where they go from the root to the lower fifth. You can hear that sound, right? Really typical bass sound, but check this out, it sounds cool. So that one's a lot of fun. It's got that cool concept, that's something you can use in any song. If you're using these G shapes, and playing out of this root shape vamping, so you're doing off la way. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away. Right? Really cool, reusable concept. There's also lots of great licks in this one, so you can spice things up even more, use some more authentic vocabulary and add some challenge. And there's going to be some more in the next one I'm going to talk about as well, the Scruggs Style version, which is more simplified than the actual Earl Scruggs version we have up. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Scruggs Style version, but before I do that, the reason I made it in the first place, the Earl Scruggs version, the one that's a transcription of how Earl played it. It's tough. It's got a lot of detail. It's really detailed, very close to how he played it. And those details, it takes a while to really get them down and to really play it well. So what I wanted to do in this one was get a little bit closer to what he's playing, use some more of the picking hand rolls and stuff that he's doing, but take out some of the fretting hand maneuvers and have a little bit more of a pattern-based approach. So you can get a few pieces down, and then you'll be able to put them all together sooner than you would in the authentic version, because there's just so many different little details of how he's playing over different chords in that one. So this one's more achievable, but also a little bit more challenge, than the basic etudes I've already talked about. So this one starts out how he plays it, right? Using this kind of, it's got a backward roll for a second, then it switches to forward. Okay, so that's the same, and that one, it's not too bad. It's if you're like an intermediate player, it's not too bad. But after that, there's so many differences in how he would fill, in between some of these licks. So what I wanted to do, like I said, was have a more pattern-based approach. So a lot of the times, after we've got like a main phrase like we have in the beginning, that descending run, using these double stop chords and rolls, we're just going to fill with a simple kind of Cripple Creek lick and some pinches. Keeping it simple. Pattern-based approaches are good. They make it easy to learn something new, make it easy to understand. And if you're, at the point where you're making your own solos, taking a simple pattern-based approach is a good option when you're getting into that. So listen to this before you play it, and also read it before you play it. If you're like an intermediate player or something like that, try to identify the rolls by either what you hear or what you see. I've had a couple people email in recently, asking about, can I put the roll names above the tablature? And as a teacher, I don't always want to give everything to students. I want to give them the tools to understand themselves, but that does take a little bit of effort. And some of the people that wrote in were like, it's hard for me to identify the roll while I'm playing. And yeah, it's hard to do anything while you're playing. So try to identify these rolls when you're not playing, just reading, just imagining the sounds, but trying to identify where the forward rolls are, where the backward rolls are, what measure is it happening in, what chords are they happening over, what chord shapes are being used. So trying to think about this stuff when you're reading it, not when you're playing it, can just help you get a deeper understanding of what's going on. And then when it does come time to play, you'll have that knowledge in the back of your head. Should make it a little bit easier to play and easier to practice as well. This Scruggs Style version has a lot of great licks. So I didn't do like a melodic version and you know, a bunch of different versions of the lead here because the licks are going to give you that. For example, you know, we've got some cool melodic options you can put over this first introductory phrase. So instead of that, we could play this simple melodic descending scale pattern. Right, and then we go into that fill I talked about. Or we can play that same melodic phrase an octave up, starting on the D note that's on the 12th fret. Right, so that's a way we can start morphing this arrangement from simple Scruggs style and adding in some different playing techniques to get a really cool and unique sound. Make sure to practice these licks with the focus feature one at a time until they're easy. And at first, you know, you might not even play it in time. You just go one note and then play the next note. You know, just playing a note at a time, making sure you get everything right and put some repetitions in there before you start trying to play it with the player. All right, so there's also some more like authentic fills you can use that use some different typical Scruggs fills and a lot of really great licks over the D chord that you can use in the A section or in the B section. So make sure to dive into the licks on this Scruggs style version. All right, I'm a guitar player kind of at heart. You know, I love the banjo and that's been my focus for like the past 5 years or something. I've been playing it for 15, but been really focused on it for the past maybe 5 years or something like that. So that being said, I put a single string version on here as well of Groundspeed. I end up playing single string style a lot in jams because my brain just sort of tends to think like a guitar player. So this is a really great exercise to get a more kind of guitaristic sound. But again, with the licks, you know, you can mix in some melodic and some Scruggs to get something a little bit more unique. I Choose You. This is a song by the Steel Drivers, really cool song, and this was a user request. Someone wanted to learn to play this, and so don't have the melody and all that stuff, but I've got some very simple backup that if you guys like this tune, you know, you could learn these simple backups and play along with the song. So we've got backup that will cover the verse. Actually, the chorus is what comes first. The chorus and the verse sections of this song. And again, with this backup, when I created it, you know, I wanted it to be achievable for the person that's gonna learn it. Ideally, want them to be able to play and get to the point to where they can maybe even play along with the song. So again, taking this pattern-based approach, and for the first one arrangement here for I Choose You, we've got a forward backward roll, and it's going to be used mainly on the 4th, 3rd, and 1st strings. It's not even going to go up to the 5th string. You could, but we're just going to keep it on those strings to keep it simple. Right? So the picking hand's going to be there, and what we're going to do is pretty cool here. Not going to need a lot of different chords, even though there is a lot of different chords in this song. What we're going to do is just move this middle finger or whatever finger you want to, move that around on the D string, and that's going to give us some of the important notes of the chord, and then the rest of the strings are just used like drones, and it ends up getting this really pretty effect that will give you some nice, solid and simple rolling backup on the banjo that sounds great for this song. 2 sections over and over. Got some great rolling backup for you there. And if you check out the licks, it'll show you how you can add in some slides and other typical bluegrass banjo elements to get a little bit more authentic sound. The first one is using the forward backward roll. Most of us are familiar with that, if we've been playing banjo for a while. The other one I did is the backward forwards roll. Not as common, but it's just like it sounds. It's instead of starting at the beginning of the normal forward backward roll pattern, where we go forward then backward, we're going to start with a backward and then a forward. So this one, because it's starting on that middle finger and this higher string, kind of focuses more on those higher pitched strings, and it gives us a higher pitched sound, but it's very cool. So just an interesting perspective using just a variation of a concept you already know if you learn this forward backward roll and the forward backward roll version of I Choose You. Really pretty sound. The other thing being incorporated into this version is some double stops, which are just 2-note chords. So as you can see, a couple of those places, I've got this little 2-note chord shape right out of a C chord, and this same shape slid up gives us a piece of a D chord right out of that first inversion shape. Make sure to just check out the fingerings and the tablature, but ideally, like I said, leave both these little chord fingers down, even if you're only playing them one at a time in the middle of a roll. Right? It's more efficient just to have the chord shape down that you'll be using. All right, I've also got a Richard Bailey style version. Richard Bailey has been the banjo player for the Steel Drivers since the beginning, since Stapleton was in it. And he's also just a super cool player. I really like the way he does Scruggs Style. It's very, very tasteful. Adds in elements of melodic as well. And I heard him on the Picky Fingers Banjo podcast recently. He did an episode. And it was just a really cool interview and very cool to hear like all the different players that he has played with and musicians he's played for, and just hear more about his style. It's very interesting. If you guys haven't heard of the Picky Fingers podcast, give them a follow. It's so cool, and there's just so many great interviews with just absolute legends, that have passed on, and legends that are still maybe under-celebrated in our time, like Richard Bailey. So give a follow to Picky Fingers Banjo podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and they're on Patreon as well. So as I said, he's got just some really cool approaches on Scruggs Style banjo. I mean, you can tell he studied it, right? There's a lot of very typical Scruggs riffs, but a few twists and turns. One of the cool things in this one I really like he does, there's a couple times where it's like a roll, but he just skips a note, and it just gives it this nice funky kind of feel. Right? He could have done like 2 backwards rolls right there. Ends up sounding maybe a little bit too minor, but he adds that skip in there. Right, so he does that in a couple places. Just a really cool take on Scruggs Style banjo, and then it's got that nice melodic run and the harmonics there at the end. So you got to make sure that your first finger's right in line with that 5th fret. Not pushing down, but just lightly touching the strings. Then after you play that last note, you just let your finger off and let it ring out. All right, Shenandoah's Melody. This was a user request, a very cool tune that I had never heard before. but it's really unique, really interesting. It starts off with this kind of descending line in the melody. Okay, really similar to I Choose You, that walk down. It's common in a lot of songs. If you've ever heard Gentle on My Mind, that's a big feature of that song, is that walk down. So Shenandoah's melody also includes a lot of inside rolls, which is cool. So inside rolls is just basically where your middle finger is on the second string more than it is, or it's on the second string instead of the first string. So we're kind of rolling on the inside strings. We're not really playing the fifth a lot of the time, or the first, and that's definitely something that happens in this song. It's a cool technique to try if you've never tried it before, and you can get a lot of really nice sounds from it. And so this one has a really good melody to it. There's a lot of kind of sparse playing, so it just sounds really nice, not really rushed and really hurried as some typical Scruggs stuff is. And there's also some really pretty melodic style runs in this as well. Okay, so that's a great just melodic scale pattern that's right in the middle of this song. So like I said, this song is long, it's complex. Don't just jump in playing this one. I mean, you shouldn't jump in playing any song, but especially this one. Make sure you listen a bunch of times in Tunefox and to the original. Use those links to Apple Music or Spotify that we have for you. Listen a bunch. Listen for like a week before you ever start playing it. And just read the tablature too, This way you're really getting your mind primed to learn it. You start to understand it before you ever play it, and that's really important. All right, that's it for this month. I hope you all enjoy everything new for the banjo. Keep picking, stay tuned.